And I don't have to cooperate with her. I'd just as soon put her in jail.
I would just rather pay it, take my kids, and not have to deal with him anymore.
And I'd appreciate it if you'd tell her to pay up and get those kids out.
Good afternoon. My name is Bill Hartjuring. I've been appointed by the court to serve as the mediator in this matter. In order that we all might begin at the same place, let's talk a little bit about what this is not and what it is. Easiest place to begin is that I am not Judge Wapner. I'm not here to render a decision. Your process and you all will decide what kind of a resolution that we have here. Also, before we begin, though, I'd like to touch on a couple of issues. At some point this afternoon, we might need to caucus, and all that is that I might meet with you alone or meet with you alone. Everything that is said during that caucus is confidential. At some points, you all might want to take some notes here. I'll be taking some notes. Let me give you a pencil and paper to be able to do that. Finally, about 2 months ago, I mediated another dispute involving Mr. Barnstorm. I don't think that's going to affect me at all in mediating this dispute, but if you have any question about that, we can appoint another mediator.
No, that's okay, Mr. Hartjuring.
All right, well, Mr. Barnstorm, why don't we begin with you?
Okay, I've got a few notes of my own here, as a matter of fact. This is really a very simple little case. She came to me and rented an apartment under false pretenses. She said she had no children, and when she moved in, she had 2 or 3, I don't know. But in addition to that, she refused to pay the rent. And so I went to try and encourage her to pay her rent, and she threw a plate at me and hit me right up here. Doesn't show very much right now, but I'll tell you that bled like fury all over my shirt and all over my new suit. And so I want $300 from her in back rent, and I want $100 for the pain and suffering of that plate she threw. And I want those kids out in a week's time. And I keep the security deposit for the mess that they made.
I can clean up after my own kids.
It's about time you started.
Now, wait a minute, folks. When we at the outset, we talked about only one person can talk at a time. So let's proceed under those rules. Is there anything else that you can tell us, Mr. Barnstorm?
No, I don't think there's anything else I've got to say except that if she doesn't pay the rent, she's in big trouble.
Ms. Stacken, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, Mr. Barnstorm's right. I do owe him rent. I don't owe him all the rent. I've paid him half of each of the past 2 months, so I only owe him $300. Problem is that I lost my job 2 weeks ago, and I don't start my next one for another 2 months. And I don't have the money to pay him for that. I'm going to start getting unemployment payments in about 3 weeks, but that's only $60 a month. So I can't afford to pay him all that he's asking right now. I'm sorry that I threw the plate at him, but that day that he came in, I mean, he was yelling and screaming and
no, that's simply not the truth. I don't go in and scream at people.
One at a time.
It's just like he's doing right now. He threatened us. He said he was going to throw us out on the street. I didn't know what to do, and I got scared and that he was going to do something terrible. But I'm sorry that I did that. I just don't know what to do because I don't have the money to pay him that right now.
She says she doesn't have the money. She's got $320 in her purse right now. I saw it.
That's all the money that I have in the world. And if I give it to him for rent, I won't have anything for the next 3 weeks for my children and myself.
Well, we can finish it here, or we can finish it in court, criminal court.
I just don't have enough money. I have to have that money to get a new apartment, too. How am I supposed to do that?
Well, you're not going to do it if the judge throws you in jail. I'll tell you that much. It'll be tougher than ever to get an apartment.
Okay, I think we're at the point now that we'll have that caucus that we talked about before. Ms. Stacken, would you mind leaving for a couple minutes so I could have a couple minutes with Mr. Barnstorm?
Okay.
Well, we're not making a lot of progress here.
Well, we'll start making some progress, I'll tell you, when she pays what she owes me and gets those kids out of the apartment.
Well, Well, let me say something here. I think it's going to be a lot easier if we can create a more cooperative attitude toward this negotiation.
I don't have to cooperate with the likes of her. If she doesn't find a way to pay her bills, why, I'd be glad to put her in jail.
Well, Mr. Barnstorm, do you really think that a judge would put her in jail in this situation?
I wouldn't be surprised, but what's more important, she's pretty sure that he'd put her in jail.
Well, look, we've got a problem here. This intimidation, this jail talk can't continue. And if it does continue, then I'm going to have to stop this mediation. And if the mediation stops, you're going to have to go back into criminal court. You can pursue the assault there, and you'll have to file a whole new action to get your rent back. Now, those are your options.
Well, you're taking her side.
I'm not taking her side. All I'm trying to do is try to lay out very clearly the consequences of the alternatives that you face.
Well, I'm not giving up any of my rights, I'll tell you that right now.
Definitely not. And there's nothing here that you would have to give up any rights on. Why don't we stop here? Is there anything that you've told me that you'd like to have me not share?
No, you could tell her anything you want, but I wish one thing you'd tell her is to pay what she owes and get those kids out.
Well, is there anything that you'd like to add that you weren't so comfortable with sharing with us in the first part?
Well, I've been thinking about it while I've been sitting out there, and I've decided that I just want to pay him and have this over with. And I'm going to pay him $300 now and $100 as soon as I can get it, just so I can be out of this.
Well, do you really want out?
Well, what do you think I should do?
Well, I can't tell you to do that. This is your dispute, and it's a decision that you've got to make. But have you thought about whether a week is enough? Do you know whether Mr. Barnstorm has filed an eviction action?
Not as far as I know.
Well, you might find that this eviction process may take a little bit longer than a week. And I don't want you to feel pressed into making a decision here. Have you had an opportunity to consult an attorney on this matter yet?
That takes too much time, and I don't have that kind of time. And the thing is, I'm scared of him. I don't want to be there. I'd rather just pay him the money and get out. And I'm scared that if I pursue this, that I could end up in jail. And then what is going to happen to my kids? You know, who's going to take care of them? I don't want to lose them. I would just rather pay it, take my kids, and not have to deal with him anymore.
Well, do you really think that a judge would put you in jail as a result of what happened here?
I don't know, but it doesn't matter. I don't want to even take that chance that this could happen.
Well, you said before that if you paid the $300 now, that you wouldn't have enough money to live on. Isn't that still a problem?
I'll manage. I've managed before. I'll manage to do it somehow. As long as I can have 2 weeks to leave and get my security deposit back, we'll manage.
Is it really what you want? Is this really what you want?
I don't know. I mean, can't you help me? I mean, is there anything I can do?
I can't help you with that. All I can do is ask you whether this is what you want.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, okay. We can bring people back in. Is there anything that we've talked about so far that you wouldn't like me to share with Mr. Barnstorm?
Well, I don't want you to tell him that I'm scared of him.
Okay. Well, after speaking with both of you, I think we've got some room for agreement. Mr. Barnstorm, you asked that both Miss Stacken and her children move out. She has indicated a willingness to do that. Part of the question comes down as to how much time are you going to give her to be able to do that?
I already told her, 1 week.
Well, let me ask you a question. In this city, do you think you'd be able to find an apartment in 1 week?
That's not my problem. I don't have to find an apartment. That's her problem.
Well, if you were to file an eviction proceeding, do you think that proceeding would still take 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks, before she moves out? And that's all that she's asking for, is those 2 weeks.
Well, I'll give her 2 weeks. But I want the $300 now, and I want the $100 in 10 days. And of course, I get to keep the security deposit.
You don't get to keep the security deposit, does he? I mean, I need that.
I'll give you your deposit back when and if you're entitled to it. And I'll be the one that'll be determine whether or not you're entitled to it, because it'll take 30 days, and we don't judge whether or not you get anything back until after you've moved out and I've had the opportunity to inspect the apartment.
But I need it for a new apartment.
Well, that's your problem.
I don't know what to do. I mean, I don't know. Is that right? Can he do that?
Well, I don't know the law, but I think you need to make sure that you've got a receipt for that security deposit. Now, is this an agreement that you can be satisfied with?
Absolutely.
Well, how about you, Ms. Stackett?
I guess so. I mean, is there anything else I can do?
Well, again, it's your decision. You've got to make that decision. You've got to decide for yourself.
Okay, it's what I want to do.
Well, we'll write it up.